Hi, hi. My name is John Birmingham. Birmingham. Really, my name is Dada. Ayla, my daughter, knows me as Dada, and uh, Rowan and Ivan and Ayla know me as Dada. And I talk to them on the video chat, and I talk to them on the video chat. Uh, Today, and that was really great. And I asked Rowan what he wants to do when he grows up, and here's a good idea. Hi. Okay, here's one of my good ideas. It's to live to. I think I can live to about 180 or 200 years old, and the people in our family are getting older, and I don't know how to get them to live too much longer in time, but maybe they can live to be 100. And I don't know if I'll be able to do genetic experimentation enough, uh, because I don't know if I'll be able to do it enough for them to live to be 180, and because they've gotten older and they're in their 70s. And here's the ways that I want us all to live long. Here are the ways that I know of, um, uh, to live way longer. Um, well, uh, I'm thinking about going back to school and becoming a chemist, or a doctor, and doing my own experiments. Uh, the thing is that you have to do experiments at a hospital or regular place like that, and I'd prefer to do them at my own house. And so I have to look up the legalities of it, because I may just start learning about it on my own and doing experiments on my own, but I have to look up the legalities to make sure that I'm doing it properly if I do it in my own home. I'm thinking about maybe becoming like a werewolf, or because you can experiment with different creatures to try to create a new creature. And I think they've done it a little bit, but the animals kind of were weak and fell apart. And I don't know if there's any experimentation that has been really well implemented on Earth so far. Uh, we've gotten less old. In the times of Adam and Eve, they lived to be 900 something years old, or 800 something years old. And we've gotten so far gone as a human race with a sin that it's caused us to live not as long. So if we can not sin and be more godly, then we can live a longer, healthier life. And we can also work at physical training. God said in the Bible that physical training is good, but the people in our family who are my kids' grandparents, Rowan, Ivan, and Ayla's grandparents, are getting older, and they're already in their 70s. And uh, maybe my mom will live to be like 100, 100, or 103, maybe 110, maybe 120. Uh, but we don't know, because God chooses when we will die. So the reason why my genetic experimentation ideas, the reason why my ideas of genetic experimentation are okay with God and good, is because the studying I've done about God and Jesus in the Bible, and knowing that it's not wrong to want to live longer, healthier lives on earth. It's not going to be that great because of the sin of the earth. If we can live to be like 200 years old, or 1,000 years old, like Adam and Eve's days of people used to live. I don't know if someone's lived to be 1,000. I have to look it up, but Adam lived to be about 900 something years old, and I think there's been other people in the Bible who lived to be 700, but somehow the sin down the generations caused people to live like not as long. And if they could live that long back then there's nothing wrong with us trying to live that long again, and it can be godly and good. So, um, I'm I'm probably going to start researching because Danica's grandmother was a scientist and a doctor. I think she was a doctor. She was married to a doctor, and I think she was also a doctor. And she was a scientist, and she died young, and it's pretty sad. And but I never met her, and I might get to meet her in heaven. I don't know. And so, and my mom was she went to Brooklyn College, which had a really good science department, and she was like a chemist and worked in the science stuff there, and used to be really good at it, but it was too hard for her to do. She wanted to do something else, and she got a degree in something else, and they made her campus queen at Brooklyn College. So that's pretty cool because she acted like she didn't want to be a model, and she didn't learn anything about how to model or act or do any of those things, but she looked really good looking, and they made her campus queen. I might make a movie about it, but I'm tired of how everything is, and I might try to like work at something different, like become a real genius scientist, and learn how to live way longer. And one idea that I already have, I know how to do that can make billions of dollars, and it's my original idea, and it's how to make people grow taller. It's not going to really help me in particular that much. I'm already kind of tall, but for people who are not very tall, who didn't grow very tall, they can pay or they get the insurance to pay for it, or the doctors may volunteer to give them the surgery. And the way that you can grow really tall is that, well, I looked into people who were the tallest people to have ever lived, and throughout the past 200 years, the tallest people on Earth were an extreme minority of maybe 10 of them on Earth or less. And the way that almost all of them grew tall was that they had a benign tumor that pressed on their pituitary gland, and it caused them to grow really tall. A really weird one of them was one of the smallest people on Earth, and he literally grew to be one of the tallest people on Earth because he got one of those benign tumors in his pituitary, pressing on his pituitary gland. So with a surgery, or by injecting something or drilling a small hole in the cranium, and with the right size thing, they can then inject a fluid that presses on the pituitary gland, and in time slowly dissolves before they grow too tall, because damage can be done. Like when those guys grow really tall, their bodies can't hold the height and the weight and all that, and they die young. So before the pituitary gland stays in their head too long, the fluid or whatever it is can be like a more like solid kind of state instead of liquid. And another way, instead of injecting the fluid into their into their brain to press on the pituitary gland that dissolves in time before they grow too tall, I'd estimate less than a year to do it safely. But for some people who might go, like really tall and experimental, there may be a chance that they can keep the implant or thing that presses on the pituitary gland there for less than 2 years, or up to 2 years. That's pretty scary because they'd grow pretty tall. They'd grow pretty fast, And so, generally, I think most of the surgeries should stay the tumor, the tumor, the artificial tumor that's implanted to press on the pituitary gland should only stay in their head for less than 1 year. And that's one of the ideas I have for people to grow tall, for people to grow taller. Multi-billion-dollar idea for someone who wants to implement that has a real patented surgery. I think it would be patented. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't really know much about if it would be patented or not, but my uncle Thomas was a scientist and he would get a patent on stuff. I don't know what that's about. I'd have to look into that kind of thing. And then, hi, let's see what the person's writing. I'm trying to read the chat. Artificial Tumor would be a great album too. Yeah, I've been at that since 1997, and it still hasn't. My God's work at that stuff still hasn't gotten very big. I might have 200 million views online, but for somebody who's worked at it for 30 years, it's not very big. Because I did also as a child. I played music and art and stuff. I didn't play art, I did art. I worked hard at art to be good at it. And you don't just all of a sudden start painting with no experience. Whoa, it's really raining. You can start painting with no experience, but it's not going to come out genius unless you work at it really, really hard, harder than anyone, almost. You have to work at it harder than almost anyone you've ever met if you want to, if you want to be one of the best or even have a chance at, like, that's how I became famous. Like, I'm not super famous. Like when you hear about people being famous is, not like Tom Cruise level yet. It's pretty small, but I got to play Ronald McDonald in a video that was my idea to film that became the biggest Ronald McDonald video on earth from 2016 to 2020. That's one of the things I did. I'm a movie star. I'm a writer, director, and star of movies. And I'm thinking about becoming a scientist, a chemist, and learning ways to live longer. I'm guessing I can live to about 180 or 200 with some research on new experiments, because I'd really like to live to about 1,000 years old. But look at me already, how much I've aged with this fat on me. And I still have, I can live to be, I don't know, God could say he wants to take me to heaven any day. I don't know, but I think it's pretty fun to, because I already know that God has a plan for me on earth to live longer. I don't really care how long I'm gonna live. I'd rather go right to heaven right now, because in heaven there's no sin and it doesn't feel bad ever again. There's nothing bad ever again. But if I get my wife and kids, then it'll be fun to be alive on earth. And I won't be as like not into being alive or something. So I keep living for the hope of getting to be with my wife and kids. Hi Chado. Who's Chado? I don't know. Hello. Me, yeah, I might go to a real school, but I might just study on my own and do it or something. Because to become a doctor, it may take 8 years or longer to become a doctor. So, and the thing about it is, I don't really feel like going into a hospital out there. It's just not. It's something I don't really want. It's not really for me unless I have loved ones who are in the hospital and I have to visit them. That's pretty normal to have loved ones and visit them in a hospital, but I don't feel like working with all the doctors and nurses in some regular hospital unless it's like, like one of the, some place really special where they do like things that are like, you know, uh, almost afraid to talk about it, but well, because it's kind of it's not cringy, but they can put on they can put on they can transplant hands now. They can give people hands. They can do hand transplants that people can use, and they could actually, if they didn't have hands, you can do that. I think they can do it with legs, but the technology is only now getting there. They had, I think, what was called the Maya Institute or something, and I learned about it and researched and studied about how they can transplant hands and limbs because I have a friend who has a missing limb. He's one of my best friends, and I shouldn't be a jerk about it, but he has a missing limb. So I studied and looked up ways that, like, what's the best technology. Also, they can transplant an entire face. So there's people that used to have burned faces, the melted faces that it didn't look that great if they're in fires and stuff. They can get an entire, a whole face transplant, but the surgery has to be done really well because they have to connect the nerve endings in the face so that it moves and is normal or not normal. Something you don't want to do. You don't want to end up with a messed up face and have to rely on a face transplant. But the technology's there now, so that's good. There's this country looking guy who's like, his face was blown off with a shotgun or a fire or something like that, and they gave him a face transplant. It's the best one that I think has been done, but I haven't checked back at the new surgeries for it. So they did like cuts on his face or something because they had to put an entire new face transplant onto his face, and they connected every little nerve ending in his face so he can move it, and it's like regular, and he looks like just some country guy who's good looking and has a couple he has some scars on his face, a young man, and he looks like he has a young face, and so that's pretty good. That was a miracle that surgery, they did that surgery. I don't know any of them. I haven't met any of those people who do the surgeries, I think, unless they're right here in my town, because they have some pretty good advanced doctor stuff in my town. They built some new huge medical place, and they're pretty good at it here. But I don't really want to go out there and work in a hospital. I'd rather have my own lab somewhere in private if I could get the funding for it, so I wouldn't have to be like in that regular hospital environment unless I had a loved one there and had to visit them in the hospital. Then it's okay. And if I was dying in a hospital, that would suck. But so I'm gonna go. Okay, these are my ideas to help the human race live longer. The number one best idea: don't sin and be godly. When you're godly, it helps you both in this life and the next life to come, that's forever. And physical training is good. God or Jesus put that in the Bible. Physical training is good. It helps the body. It helps you in some way because it's good. So the other ways are maybe some kind of medicine that is like modern medicine, or some kind of surgery to like stem cells that have been proven to help people live longer, and some new experimental thing that we can do some kind of experiments to help us live way longer or a little longer, and maybe a few of those to get to live to 180 instead of like 1,000 ideally, and that's about how old they used to live in the old biblical times. So it shouldn't be sinful to live that old. So I'm going to go. Praise God. Praise Jesus. Bye.